Ladies and gentlemen, Violet Games here. Today, I wanted to do a little Let's Talk about the state of play, or Sony's state of play. It wasn't good. I mean, I'm beating a dead horse at this point, I really feel like it, and so many other YouTubers who are better than me, to be quite honest with you, have covered this topic. But I want to make a video, goddammit. I'm going to make a video. We're going to talk about Sony's state of play and why it was trash. So, if you want me to explain to you in layman's term why it was bad, it's because it focused on PlayStation VR. And I know that there is a community out there that vehemently defends PlayStation VR for some reason. And I feel like it's because they haven't played good VR before. But the way I feel about the PSVR as a platform is right now it's not sustainable and the quality isn't high enough to warrant you to purchase it. You're not going to have long-term fun with the PSVR. It's not really worth the price of admission, even though it is the most consumer-friendly VR available. I think that's what it comes down to, is that this is people exposing themselves to VR for the first time, and they're getting a little overhyped. Now, I have a different opinion on this because I've played two different VR headsets, and the experiences I had were dramatically different. And I tried multiple games on the PSVR because I really wanted to give it a chance, but I feel like it just fell behind. So let's talk about the first VR system I used. It was an Oculus Rift on my friend's brother's high-end PC. Like, this is thousands of dollars invested. You know, it was when the Oculus was a bit newer than it is now. And I played a game called Robo Recall at about 140 frames per second. I saw everything around me. The visual detail was jarring. I felt like I was in a virtual world. And not only that, but the controls and stuff felt more intuitive with that game in particular. It felt like you were using these two guns. The triggers felt right. It felt like you were shooting these guns. No recoil, though. So, I mean, not completely. But you get what I'm saying. The virtual world is something you could get lost in. And I remember we spent like that evening just dodging around, dodging bullets, deflecting the bullets with the guns and stuff. Really taking full advantage of everything that VR system had to offer. And I thought it was a blast. I really do feel that VR has a place in gaming as a concept. I feel like things like horror games would be a lot better on the VR if there was a way to add a controller scheme that felt right for the platform. So I really want to see VR succeed. However, the PSVR is just straight up not there. Now, when I played on my friend's PlayStation 4 VR, it was done on a pro system. I want to make sure that's clear. My PlayStation just activated a bunch of commands when I was talking, so I had to back out of like several menus. I'm trying to make a video about your console. Stop it, PlayStation. Calm down. It's fine. Alright, so technical issues aside, how was my experience with the PlayStation 4's VR? It's not even comparable to the Oculus. It's just not ready. And there are two salient points as to why. I think the resolution is too low, and I think the control scheme is absolute garbage. When the resolution is too low in a VR setting, it makes you sick, and it kind of tricks your brain into thinking that things are out of focus. I kept squinting at the iron sights of my gun in Doom VFR because they were just so goddamn blurry to the point where it was nauseating. And I had to take the headset off after like 10 minutes. It was unacceptable. And the same goes for Skyrim VR. I felt like I was nauseated within minutes because the resolution is just so poor. Coming off of that Oculus, it was really jarring to play on a PSVR as well. So resolution just being that poor and making the consumer sick is not even good. And I've heard people defend the PSVR. You know, I'm going to call you out. Solid Rev, I saw you defend the PSVR saying it was cool after it made you throw up. How can you defend it after it made you throw up? I have no idea. Maybe you had too much to drink, and maybe that's what you're putting it off on. But dude, seriously? Come on, bro. Come on. If it makes you puke, that's not good. That's not a good gaming peripheral. It's so good I puked. No one says that. Man, that was so tasty. I puked immediately. It never happens in no universe. Unless it's epitaph, I guess, or whatever that, or ipecac. Not epitaph. That's a completely different fucking word. Ipecac. So the other problem with the PlayStation VR is the control scheme. The control scheme, if you didn't know, was mangled off the corpse of the PlayStation Move. There are these two cylinders that are basically Wiimotes. Basically, PlayStation tried to make a version of the Wii for the PlayStation 3, and it failed miserably, thank God. And I guess they didn't learn their lesson from that. Or maybe Sony thought they could recycle these fucking things, because I really do feel like that's what they went for. They're like, well, we're making a new peripheral, third peripheral. Well, we don't want to spend that much money on it, but we want to make a consumer-friendly VR system. What can you do to cut costs? Oh, let's recycle the PlayStation Move controls. They don't work, guys. Just Google what the controllers look like, and you'll understand why. I think the lack of a second analog stick and directional pad on each controller makes it not viable. Now, they could have added things to that. They could have kept the base design and added on buttons, but I really do feel like, honestly, they were trying to recycle these fucking Move controllers. And it's dumb. It was a failed platform, and they should have learned from that. You can't just implement that twice and expect it to succeed. So the Move controls for VR are absolutely terrible. They are precise, though. They do work accurately. That is one thing I will, give them. Another thing I'll actually give the PSVR is the headset itself is actually very comfortable. It's the most comfortable VR headset I've ever put on. I wear glasses, and the Oculus smashes my glasses up against my face, whereas the PSVR actually gives you like a little rubber dome to kind of keep between you and your face, and you can wear glasses with it, and it's much preferable to the Oculus as far as comfort goes. But outside of that, the control scheme of the PlayStation VR is just so inadequate. And one game that kind of circumvents these problems, and this is kind of a good PSVR game in my opinion, is Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 on the PSVR is actually kind of enjoyable, because the way they do the graphics is they'll downscale less important textures, and because it's a horror game, there are a lot of dark spaces that they can use to actually lower the pixel count so that the rooms run a little bit better in the VR setting. But like I've said, if you could play that version of the game on console just by itself, it would look better and run better. So is the VR headset really worth it? It's kind of cool for the perspective to be able to move your head and kind of with the game. It's very cool as an experience, but again, it's not going to take you home. And also it circumvents the Move controllers, like I said. Literally using a PlayStation DualShock 4 is far more effective than using those Move controls. And it's not because the PlayStation 4 DualShock 4 is superior or is a good VR, control method. It's that it's just better than the terrible, terrible movement system of the Move controls. So that is why people are kind of pissed about this state of play. Is because VR is just not a viable platform, and that's all they pimped at State of Play. That's why it's bad. Thank God for the community for standing up and, making a stink about this. Because I don't want to see Sony do this again. I really don't want to see Sony focus on VR too much and lose sight of what made them number one. Sony didn't, didn't become number one this generation because they innovated. They didn't innovate in shit. They just made really good games for their system. They said, here's a platform, put good games on this platform, and that's all that matters, really, at the end of the day in gaming, is what experiences can you have. And when you have a lot of unique experiences that you can only experience on a PlayStation, people are going to gravitate towards that system. You have an argument to own a PlayStation 4 if you own a different console, for example, because of those unique experiences. And I want Sony to lock that down and understand that. Now, getting into the other aspects of the state of play, there are a few things that really stood out to me. I mean, one, having my dreams crushed for an Iron Man game with that VR ripoff. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. When they teased the Iron Man game and then they rip the record player. You know that analogy where the record player cuts off because the needle's dragged across the disc? Imagine that analogy, but times 20. Sony straight up took the record player, ripped it off the table, and slammed it into your face not your face, the face of your newborn child. That's how abrupt Sony dropped it. Right when it cut to VR gameplay, I was like, no, I thought we had an Iron Man game. And then everything else was just VR trash. Five Nights at Freddy's, give me a fucking break. And then like all this other shit that just doesn't even look good because the PSVR isn't a good platform. It just isn't. And most people, again, have that consensus. Now, one thing I did see that I actually liked that I didn't see before from Sony was this game called Concrete Genie. Just looking at that game for a moment, though. Like, just look at that game for a moment, though. It looks like a Tim Burton movie in motion. It feels like you're playing The Night Before Christmas. Just imagined it a game. The art style is just so interesting. I hope it's good because I want to play a game that looks like that. I think the art style is absolutely outstanding, and again, I feel like it's analogous to playing like a Tim Burton movie. It's like playing Coraline or something, and it has like this anti-bullying concept. It's about loneliness. It has this kind of sad undertone. Like, I dig it. I dig it. I hope it touches upon certain themes and has good resolutions to it, and it's just a heart-filled story. That's what I'm looking for in that game. I'm looking for in that game. It looks fun. I'll keep my eye on it. Anyways, guys, that's Violent Games for State of Play. I feel like I talked more about PSVR than anything, but I feel like that was an angle that most people didn't take when talking about it, is actually explaining why PSVR is kind of lame and most people don't care anyhow. It's not because it's a gimmick. It's because the platform itself sucks. So, anyways, hopefully in the next gen, Sony doesn't focus too much on their VR. They have been on record saying that they wanted to, which scares me. I want Sony to focus on their AAA games, let good games be made, and then, like, I don't know, maybe do VR on the side. I don't want VR taking the center point, and I hope Sony can clarify that that's what they're going for in the next gen. Hopefully the blowback from the community will kind of give Sony a little hint, nudge, don't fucking do this. You'll give them the win. You'll give the company the win. But yeah, that's all I got for you. I'm losing my voice. Violent Games signing out.